So just to finish off this error handling section, what we're going to take a look at now is what happens if our API server is not even started or unresponsive. What do we get back as an error inside our client? And let's take a look. So if I just stop my API and we go back to our client application and we'll go to the console and let's just refresh this page again. And this time what we get is this error connection refused. And we just get a generic error from our activity store because we're logging a response back inside there. So let's go back to Axios and just log out what we're getting back from our error in the case of a network error. And let's take a look. And we can log out the error. And what we get is we get an error with a message of network error. And what we can do is we can just check this to see if this error message is equal to network error, because what we don't get is an error response. And if I try and use error.response and do the same thing again, what we get is undefined. So what we can use is those two properties really to check to see if we are getting a network error. And what we can do is, and I'll just add this above anything else, and I'll say if the error dot message is equal to network error and the error response is undefined, so we'll just use the not operator, then what we can do is add a toast and say error, and we can say network error, and in this case this is just a hint for the students, make sure API is running in this case. So we should see this particular response if our API is not running, or there's a problem with the network or something along those lines that prevents our client application from even communicating with the server. So let's make sure this is working, and I can already see the toast is coming up. So, and we can see our toast there for when our API is not running. And if we restart our API, then we should no longer see that particular toast notification. And let's just make sure that is the case. And if I just refresh, then we go back to our normal server error. And let's turn off the exception for the details page so that we put our application back to normal. And I'll just head over to the unreachable code detected inside my details page, and let's remove this particular exception and save our changes. And let's just make sure we can refresh and actually get the activity, and indeed we do. And I just want to go back to the activities. I'm just going to clean up this log that we're using in the activity store. We don't need that anymore. And that's activity store line 41. Let's just remove this particular log that's remained in my console. And whilst we haven't looked at validation yet inside our form, that's another place that we're going to look at next. But in order to deal with validation, we need to take a look at forms in more detail. And that's big enough to deserve a section on its own. So we'll call this job done for the moment when it's in terms of error handling. And what we want to do is save our changes into source control. So I'm just going to stage all of these changes and then say end of section 10 and commit these changes and then push these on up to GitHub. What we also want to do before we finish this particular section is to clean up our database, because we've been sending up empty activities prior to adding the validation. So we've got some bad data in our database. And what we can do to resolve that is to simply drop our database and then restart our application, and that will give us clean data to work with. So what we'll do is we'll stop our API server, and I'm just going to cd up to the reactivities solution folder. And what we want to do here is say .NET EF database drop. And we need to specify the persistence project and also the startup project here as well. And just press return. And yes, we do want to drop the database. And all we need to do then is cd back into our API and say .NET watch run. And this is going to go ahead and reseed our activities into the database. And if we go back to Postman and take a look at getting our activities, then what we'll find is that these are now gone with no data inside them. And now we just get our original 10 activities that we had initially. So what we'll do next is we'll wrap up this particular section with a summary before we move on to what we're going to look at next, which is all about forms.